Hello. I'm glad you're here. You won't hear these stories in church. What you're about to witness isn't for everyone. This is one of those truths whispered in ancient tongues, from scriptures that were once part of the Bible and then were torn out. Angels who watched humanity from above, and instead of obeying, chose to fall. It wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. And that choice changed everything. They gave birth to monsters, taught secrets that were never meant for man, and triggered a war that still echoes in the soul of the world. So if you're here, take a deep breath, because you're about to see things most people aren't ready for. Welcome to the dark lore, where the forbidden finally speaks. Before the flood, before Moses, the Exodus, or Sinai, there was a different world, a world erased from human memory. Humanity was just awakening. Men and women walked the earth, innocent, unaware of the cosmos watching them. They farmed, lit fires, looked at the stars, never knowing that from above, something was watching them back. They were the watchers, not gods, not mortals. They were angels, assigned to observe, not intervene, commanded by the Most High to protect, without touching, but to watch for centuries, can wear down even the purest of spirits. From the heights of heaven, the watchers saw human emotion, love, laughter, tears, passion, and slowly, something that should never have happened began to unfold. Fascination and then desire. One of them fell first. His name was Samyeza, a leader, a guide among the angels. And what he felt when he looked upon the daughters of men was not obedience nor compassion. It was hunger. One night, when the sky was clearer than ever, Samyaza descended alone to a tall mountain. From there, he watched a woman washing her clothes in a river. Her skin glowed under the moonlight. Her song was soft, primal, and for the first time, an angel trembled. Samyaza returned to the heavens, but he was no longer the same. His eyes had been stained by human beauty, and his soul by desire. He called upon his brothers. 200 watchers gathered at Mount Hermon. There, he proposed the unthinkable. Let us all descend. Let us take wives from among men. Let us bear children. Let us make the world ours. There was silence, fear, but also hunger. And so they made a pact, a covenant sealed with fire. If one fell, all would fall. There would be no turning back. And with that vow, the heavens tore open. They came down from the heavens not as messengers, but as strangers, hungry strangers, strangers who came to possess. Humans did not know who they were, but their faces shone like the sun. Their eyes burned like fire, and their voices thundered from the mountains. The women looked at them in awe, but also with something else: surrender. They did not know they were crossing a threshold, one with no return. The angels took wives. It wasn't ceremony. It was desire, possession, unrestrained passion. From that forbidden union, creatures were born. Giants, the Nephilim, tall as trees, strong as beasts, uncontrollable, with a hunger that could never be satisfied. At first, they were worshipped. They built cities, moved mountains, tamed fire, but soon they became monsters. They devoured animals, then humans, and finally each other. The earth shook beneath their steps. Rivers ran red with blood, and the heavens fell silent. The watchers, now fathers of abominations, watched their legacy become a curse, and in their eyes, for the first time, there was fear. They were no longer angels, no longer celestial. They had become the architects of the greatest blasphemy ever conceived. The world darkened, and high above, something began to awaken. Heaven remained silent, but earth knew. The wind stopped moving. Birds fell quiet. Rivers flowed in hush, as if all life awaited a nameless terror. For in the highest heavens, where time neither commands nor forgives, a judgment was made. God, the Creator, looked upon what His children had done. Not just flesh corrupted, not just the cries of the innocent, but arrogance, rebellion, the hunger to be gods. The Nephilim defied the order. The watchers broke their command. Humans twisted their destiny, and the Creator decided. A decision without words, rage, or vengeance, only justice. The flood was not punishment. It was cleansing, restoration. And then the sky began to darken, not with storm, but silence, a silence that ached in the bones. Animals began to move. Clouds gathered. Lightning formed, but did not fall. And Noah already knew, not with certainty, but with faith. For some decisions are felt only by the soul, and his had heard the divine whisper long before the rain ever fell. Noah wasn't a saint. He wasn't a warrior. He didn't speak in angelic tongues or shine with holy fire. He was just a man, but with something rare: obedience. While the world danced in orgies and violence, Noah watched in silence. Not because he was better, but because he didn't belong. Inside him burned a quiet voice, one that whispered, "This can't end well." He saw children corrupted, elders consumed by hate, the sacred ridiculed. Then came the silence. One night he dreamed of water, water that swallowed the world, water that spoke with God's voice. He woke up knowing the world was damned. But he wasn't. A whisper in his chest said, "Build me an ark." And Noah, without question, began to cut wood. The neighbors mocked. Kids threw stones. His wife doubted. Still, he worked. Every strike of the hammer was a prayer. Every nail a sacrifice. He wasn't building a boat. He was building a future no one wanted. At night, the voice returned. "Bring the animals. Prepare the gate. Do not look back." And Noah obeyed. He obeyed even when it hurt, even when he lost everything, even when he was laughed at, abandoned, misunderstood. Not because he was the purest, but because he was willing to listen. There was no doubt left in his gaze, only purpose. He knew once the skies opened, there'd be no turning back, and still he kept building, because obedience was harder than building. But it was the only thing that could save the world. The first drop fell like a sentence. No thunder, no lightning, just a tear from above, a single drop, sinking into the earth like it awakened something ancient. And then the sky opened. Not like a storm, but like a scream. Men stared at the sky in disbelief. They screamed. They ran. They prayed to gods that did not answer. The mothers held their children close. Temples crumbled under the weight of a judgment that could no longer be stopped. Animals fled without direction. The mountains began to weep rivers. Cities turned to mud and ashes. When divinity decides to cleanse, it does not come with rage. It comes with absolute silence and a storm that does not forgive. The water is no longer rain. It's an enemy, a sentence. Rivers no longer flow, they devour. The mountains offer no refuge. They are traps. Doors do not hold. Roofs don't protect. And the people, they only scream. Was it a sigh from God, a blink, or just the last drop in an ocean of neglect? The wise drown in their own prayers. Kings beg like slaves. Mothers bury their children in the same puddles they drink from to survive. The sound of the world drowning. A final symphony. No one comes to save them. No sky opens. This time, the waters close in. Stone idols are dragged like broken toys. What was once sacred is now rot and mud. Night fell like a curtain over the ark. Outside, the world screamed. Not voices, echoes, groans, rising from the earth's core, as if the soil itself mourned. Inside, silence, not peaceful, tense, as if all sound had drowned. The ark shook with currents, lifting and crashing like a chest breathing in agony. Each wave hurled the ark upward, then down again with a crash that echoed like thunder trapped in a wooden cage. Fear trembled through every joint. Noah sat at the center, surrounded by creatures and kin, yet utterly alone. He didn't speak, didn't pray. He simply listened to the weight of judgment. The droplets on his face weren't rain. They were sweat, maybe tears. Even he didn't know anymore. He had obeyed, but glory felt distant. What remained was burden. His wife watched from afar. She wanted to reach him, remind him they were alive. But how do you comfort someone who just watched the world die? One of his sons, the youngest, whispered, "Will it end soon?" Noah said nothing. He didn't know, only God knew. And God had gone quiet since the door had shut. The air reeked of wet wood, fear, damp fur, and the breath of beasts. The lamp swayed above, its flicker, the last fragile hope in a sea of dread. No one slept that night. The divine sentence had fallen, but its echo still rang. Obedience had spared them, but the cost burned in every breath. The ark was vast, but that night it felt small. A wooden box afloat on judgment, holding not just life, but unbearable memory. Noah had saved life, but for the first time, he understood what salvation really meant. It wasn't triumph, it was weight. It was grief. Above them, the heavens raged. Below, the deep consumed. And between them, a vessel of silence, carrying the last heartbeat of a drowned world. When the door opened, silence greeted them. No birdsong, no rustling leaves. Just the squelch of mud underfoot and the eerie breath of a world reborn and ruined. The land was alien, familiar shapes twisted by judgment. Blackened trunks like bones, rivers turned to mirrors of ash, and skies that refuse to forget. They walked like survivors of a forgotten war. Every step unsure, every breath stolen. They weren't entering Eden. They were stepping into the grave of what once was. Noah built an altar, not to celebrate, to beg. A plea wrapped in fire and silence. May this never happen again, even if man deserves it. The fire rose, carrying a scent of sacrifice, of fear, of blood and second chances. Heaven inhaled. And for a moment it hesitated. Then came the light, gentle, unasked, a whisper from above. No more flood, no more erasure. A promise etched in skyfire. And a sign, a bow of colors that split the heavens. Not a weapon, but a memory of wrath held back, of mercy drawn like a blade, never to be unsheathed again. Noah touched the soil, wet, cold, alive. The earth had not dyed it, had bled, and now it waited. He planted a seed. Just one, small, fragile, but in it lived the echo of Eden and the ghost of every failure that led to the flood. That night, they didn't speak of God nor sin, nor salvation. They stared at the fire, wondering if anything would ever feel clean again. And Noah drank, not to celebrate, but to forget. The hero of salvation, now a man, haunted by the price of mercy. The first drop hit the soil like blood, the beginning of something new, or the return of something ancient. Even after the flood, man remained man. They say the flood ended, that the waters receded, and a new world began. But look closely. Did it really end? Violence remains, lies, hatred, bodies don't float, but they fall. The waters don't cover cities, but they drown them in apathy. Screens are our new prophets, and their message is clear. The flood wasn't punishment. Maybe the water didn't come to kill. It came to reveal, to show what we are, without temples, without laws, without witnesses. What if the covenant wasn't with God? What if it was with the darkness inside us, the one that survived? Even the judgment. Humanity didn't forget the flood. It just learned to live with it, to build invisible arcs, to row through waters no one wants to see. Sin no longer screams, it whispers. It doesn't hide behind beasts. It wears the mask of progress. And when the next judgment comes, it won't fall from the sky. It'll rise from within. Because if the flood was the warning, the end is born inside us. Maybe you feel it too. That emptiness, that quiet suspicion that something is deeply wrong. And when no one listens, when the last tear falls, it won't be water that drowns us. It will be silence. If you made it this far, it's not by chance. You saw what others choose to ignore. And that makes you part of something greater. Subscribe, not for us, but for the truths still buried. Give it a like. Turn on the bell, because this was just the first chapter, and there are darknesses we've yet to unearth.